I want you to imagine yourself in 6th grade. You're sitting at your desk and you're waiting patiently as the teacher passes out the results of the most recent math quiz. You see that you got a failing grade, a big fat F. And immediately you start to feel so anxious, your heart is racing, you want to cry, and your classmate sitting next to you says, "Hey, what's wrong?" You tell her, "I got a really bad grade on the quiz." And your classmate says, "Oh, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. We take these quizzes literally every week." As you hear your classmate, you can feel yourself trying so hard to hold back the tears because you don't want her to see how sad you feel about this test. And so now, not only are you feeling sad about the test, but you're also feeling ashamed that you had this response. If this story resonates with you, you may be emotionally sensitive. Emotionally sensitive people feel really intensely and for longer periods of time. And oftentimes, emotionally sensitive people struggle with low self-esteem. Today, you will learn how being an emotionally sensitive person who has experienced invalidation can lead you to feel that there's something wrong with you. My name is Dr. Mary Kate Ruhan. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist, and I help emotionally sensitive people go from feeling overwhelmed to empowered. And just a quick reminder, this video is for educational purposes only. So if you're really struggling, please reach out to a licensed mental health provider in your area to get the support that you need. The term emotional sensitivity comes from dialectical behavior therapy, or DBT for short. And what DBT tells us is that problems can arise for a person if they are emotionally sensitive and they are met with an invalidating environment. In other words, if you're emotionally sensitive, you could be doing just fine, feeling your feelings. However, if there's a mismatch between how you relate to the world and how your environment supports you relating to the world, you can run into some issues like having trouble regulating your emotions, or you push your feelings down, or maybe you struggle in communicating authentically in relationships. DBT's biosocial theory, which is what they call their model, tells us that this is a no blame situation. In other words, it's not necessarily the fault of the emotionally sensitive person, and it's not necessarily the fault of the environment. It's the interaction, the mismatch, that causes all of these different difficulties. I want you to think about a family of bakers. They make lots of bread and they share it with their neighborhood. One of the children in the family is gluten intolerant. Now, there's nothing wrong with being a family of bakers, and there's nothing wrong with being gluten intolerant. However, if a gluten intolerant person keeps being exposed to a bunch of gluten-filled pastries, they start to get sick. That is what the interaction between an emotionally sensitive individual and an invalidating environment is like. If it happens over and over and over and over again, that emotionally sensitive person starts to really hurt. So if we go to the example of the class, the emotionally sensitive person is the student who got her quiz back and felt sad about her grade. The invalidation came from her friend sitting next to her who said, "Don't worry about it. You shouldn't worry about that grade. It's not a big deal. Nobody else cares." Because to the emotionally sensitive person, to that girl who was upset about her grade, she did care. It did make her anxious. It did make her sad. And when someone else communicates, no, don't think that way, don't feel that way, it can lead to a sense of shame that we're doing something wrong. And it can also make it hard to trust our responses to the environment. When you are told over and over and over again that your response is different from how other people respond to a situation, it really starts to impact how you feel about yourself. Emotionally sensitive people are frequently told in a number of different settings that their emotional response is different or it is wrong. It might sound like, you shouldn't worry about your grade on the test, or you shouldn't be scared of the dark, it's not that big of a deal, or you shouldn't be sad that your parents are leaving for the evening, they're gonna come back later, or whoa, you are a little too excited about that. When you are told over and over and over again that you shouldn't respond in a specific way, you start to tell yourself the same thing. I shouldn't be scared right now. I shouldn't be sad right now. I should chill out. I shouldn't be so excited. If you're emotionally sensitive, you may automatically just assume that your response to a situation is wrong. And if you're just assuming that you're wrong all of the time, you're less likely to actually say how you feel or say what you need. And if you don't say how you feel and you don't say what you need, then other people in your life can't actually meet your needs, which is going to leave you feeling dissatisfied and like people don't really understand you, people don't really get you, which again impacts self-esteem. It impacts how we see ourselves. We might then see ourselves as different or unlovable or as an outsider. If this story and this information resonates with you, know that you are not alone. There are so many amazing, emotionally sensitive humans walking around in your communities, in your world. One of the reasons that emotionally sensitive people so often experience invalidation is because even though there are lots of us around here, lots of feelers, there are more people in the world that are not emotionally sensitive. So that means that growing up as an emotionally sensitive person, you likely had siblings, parents, teachers, classmates that were not emotionally sensitive. And so as a result, they didn't know how to attune to your needs because their experience of the world was different than your experience of the world. So even though it sometimes feels like you are alone and other people don't get you, know that there are many emotionally sensitive people out there and they're probably looking for you. Because one of the best things that you can do to build self-esteem as an emotionally sensitive person is find other feelers. Find people who respond to the world in similar ways as you, because that in and of itself is validating. That is a match and it can feel really, really, really healing. In addition to finding community, try to work on having compassion for yourself and your experience. Imagine yourself as the gluten intolerant child in a family of bakers that didn't know their child was gluten intolerant. It's hard, it's painful. And the more that we can bring in self-compassion for our past experiences, saying, hey, I was doing the best I can, I'm going to keep doing the best I can. If you think about treating yourself how you would an emotionally sensitive friend, with that kindness and validation, that's going to help you understand the strengths of this trait rather than seeing it as this burden that has led you to feel negative thoughts about yourself. Because it really is a strength. It's also what is connected to your creativity and your compassion and your empathy. And when people tell you you're a good friend, guess what? Part of that's because you're emotionally sensitive. Also, if you are looking for additional strategies to help navigate your emotional sensitivity and build your self-esteem, you can check out the booklet that I made with 5 steps to help you be the boss of your emotions. I'll put the link in the description. And finally, think about setting boundaries. I know this is kind of cliche word these days, as an emotionally sensitive person, you feel really intensely. And so you got to get clear on what leads to those big emotions, and also what kind of things can you do for yourself to be more grounded. And once you know them for yourself, you can be clear with other people. You can let people know, hey, I need this. That's a boundary when you're saying what you need. And I do not need this. That's another boundary when you're saying what you do not need. And when you're clear with other people around your needs, then they can meet them. You can have that match. It's no longer the mismatch, it's a match, and it feels validating. And as you have more and more matches and more validation, your self-esteem will build. Okay, so that's what I've got for you today. Feel free to check out some videos on this channel about navigating emotional sensitivity, and I will see you soon.